It is the middle of winter and I'm really missing working with the flowers. So I stopped by the grocery store and picked up some tulips and lilies. And before I do anything with the arrangement, I'm going to condition these flowers by trimming up the stems and cleaning up any old rotten leaves or entire tulips. But I have to confess, the other reason why I want to make arrangement today is I finally found a tureen after a year of searching for one. And this, I think, is vintage from 1970s or maybe even the 30s. Not sure how to read this stamp. And I only got it for $6. Such a score. So I washed it up and got it ready for arranging. And this is Red Cliff Ironstone, so I heard that that's kind of a cool thing. So you want to start with chicken wire, and actually you want to put a frog at the bottom, but I don't have one, so we're making it work. And then you use some floral tape to keep the chicken wire in one spot because it can kind of move around when you put the stems in. Then I add some floral food, just a sprinkle is all you need, and then I add in some fresh water, and then we can start getting arranging. I'm making a centerpiece arrangement today, so we want to start with something that's going to add some structure. So any of your branches that are very sturdy and woody is what you want to start with. So I clean up the stems and get rid of any old dingy leaves, and then I try to envision the shape that I want. So you can go asymmetrical, you can have it cascading all over the place, but I kind of went with a mostly symmetrical rounded shape. So I trim up the stems as I need to get the height just right, and then for woody stems you want to cut up the stem to split it so that it can help the woodiness hydrate. And this part is a little bit tricky when you don't have a frog because there's nothing to secure the stem in the place. So it's going to wiggle around a little bit if you don't have a frog. But as you keep adding stems, they'll be easier and easier to just put in and stay in the spot. So I'm starting to build in the layers by adding different pieces of the woody ivy pieces and adding different heights and the overall shape. So at this point you want to keep your stems pretty long because this is where you're going to get the general outline of the shape going. When we add in the flowers and the accents, they're going to be inside of this outline of the structural woody bits. So don't make these too short. At this point you want to have the height so that you have a lot of space to work with. So once you have your outline built, then you can start adding in more of the textural pieces and those accent pieces. So I'm using the Artemisia here, and I like how the lacy foliage contrasts with the round, flat, green ivy leaves. I think that this is a very nice contrast. So I'm cleaning up any of the dead little leaves that are getting damaged from the winter weather and just trying to vary the heights of these different stems. And at this point, this is really starting to add in the bulk and filling in any of the gaps or open areas. Before I trim a stem, I hold it up against the tureen and check to see if I like the height, and then I'll trim up the stem there. At this point, it's a lot of fluffing and adjusting. And I can't remind you enough, don't keep the stems too short at this point. You want to get them a little bit longer so that you have some area to work with. You can always trim things down or make things a little bit tighter, but it's a lot harder to keep the stems longer after you've cut them. I'm liking the fullness at this point. It's okay that there's some gaps because we're going to fill in with flowers, but overall I like the shape and the fullness. So now it's time to add in the lilies. So these are our focal in this arrangement. Typically you can use tulips as a focal flower, but in size comparison, the lilies are definitely the focal in this one. So again, I'm just measuring up the stem against the length of the tureen and then trimming as needed. The lilies are great because they are pretty structural as well, and so they help to add some height and structure to the arrangement. Keep in mind that the lilies will open up over time, so some of these buds will eventually open to be full, very focal flowers. So if you're looking to have this arrangement be beautiful over time, not just for a specific event or time, then consider that when you're arranging. I did add some flowers to the back of the arrangement because I had some extras, but this is going to be displayed in the corner here, so the back doesn't necessarily need to be designed, but something to consider. One thing to note about lilies is that the anthers on the inside of the flower is where the pollen is produced, and that can shed and stain the flowers and any tablecloths, so make sure that you take those off if you see them, and as the flowers continue to open up, take them off as well. If you get them at the immature stage, then they won't make a mess all over your hands. So I'm just adding in the last few stems of lilies, and I'm really liking how this is looking and the explosion kind of vibe I'm getting from this. This is very fun. So now I think we're ready to add the accents, which in this arrangement are the tulips. So let me show you a little trick that florists do to get bigger impact from their tulips. So this is how a tulip usually looks, and this is more open and beautiful, right? It's called reflexing the petals. So you just run your hand along the petal and very gently guide it open. Flip it as you can, and just watch out, the petals may split, but I think that's okay because it just looks a little frillier. But go around and do it to all the petals very gently, and you'll get a nice full looking tulip. Little hack for you. Again, now we're just measuring the stem up against the length of the vase and checking where we like the placement. So these are going to be our accent, so we want to speckle them in between the focal flowers, which are our lilies. And keep in mind that tulips do continue to grow in the vase, so these look a little bit nestled in, but over time they will lengthen and kind of stick out a little bit more. I like that these tulips have a little hint of blush because I feel like it pulls out the reddish brownish color in the ivy berries, and I think that that's a very nice compliment. And if it was all white, would that be a little bit boring? I don't know. So I fine-tuned the shape and filled in with branches and pieces of foliage as I thought it needed, and I think this turned out wonderful. I think this is very winter and it's very traditional, which clearly from my interior design style is my vibe. So what do you think? How do you like it? Let me know in the comments below. Alright, I'm gonna stop fluffing it. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. This is my first time ever arranging in a compote like this, so I think it worked out. So this is a centerpiece style arrangement, and this is going to be displayed right here on my dining room table. So I focused a lot on the front. The back is a little bit bare, but I did try to just fill it out. You know, but then this is my broken tulip. So very, very happy with this. So I didn't end up using the cedar or the snowberries. I just feel like it's kind of simple and I like it that way. It looks very elegant, and I feel like that pairs nicely with the style of the compote itself. I bought 6 stems of lilies and then 10 stems of tulips, but 2 of them were moldy, so I ended up only using 8. And I would estimate to be about 10 stems each of the greenery. So as you know, the lilies are going to open up over time, so this is going to be a fun display. It's really important to keep up on your skills during the winter time, so study up on floral design, and if you can, get some grocery store flowers and practice. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.